Got it. Do we have to mute the YouTube? Lisa? No?
No.
Okay, so then you can do the recording
Yeah.
next for the meeting.
All right, we are recording the meeting. Record to the cloud or the computer?
Sorry about that, Andy. Okay. We have a quorum. So you got all the electronica going and everything's working.
It seems that way. I think,
Think we're ready?
yeah, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, we're ready to go. All right, let's see what time it is. Yeah, close enough for government work, I guess. Literally. All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the then Landmark Commission for February 21st to order. First thing we do is roll call. I'm here.
I'm here.
Derek Stevens
Derek
is here. Andy, you're here.
Here.
Jim's here.
I'm here.
And Tom's here. Missing tonight is Kathy and Terry. But we do have a quorum, so we can get going,
I
okay?
believe Kathy may come virtually.
Oh, okay, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great. And if she does come in virtually, please let me know.
I will.
And so
Not
we
yet.
can welcome her, let her know she's in. The first thing we need to do, general comments and questions from the public. Any topic that's not on the agenda, if there is anyone out there in the audience or in the electronic audience who would like to make a statement to the commission on any topic that is not on the agenda.
No members of the virtual.
Nobody here?
So we have 3 people that are attending virtually.
Okay.
But okay,
Do they wish to, anyone wish to make a question, statement?
this is where they would raise their hand, right, Lisa? If they would.
Yeah, I just.
Okay.
Kathy's here.
So you want to move Kathy over to a panelist and she can talk? Or can you unmute her as an attendee?
She's a.
Okay. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh, Kathy's here. Hi, Kathy. How are you doing?
It's 75 here, so I'm doing pretty well.
Glad you could join us tonight.
Thank
All
you.
right. No hands up for public comment? Okay, then we will move on to third item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the January meeting. I'm assuming that everyone has had a chance to look those minutes over. There's a couple of issues that were raised in last month's meeting that I would like to address, but we'll go ahead and do that at good of the order towards the end of the meeting. Okay. Otherwise,
I move to approve the minutes as presented. Second.
it has been moved to accept the minutes as presented and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, resolution passed. Minutes have been approved. All right, got that. I'm gonna put that over there. All right, that brings us to public hearing PLHIS 202208337. The applicant, Mindy Lyman, on behalf of Vincent and Deborah Rowley. Is everybody here?
Mindy Lyman.
Thank you. Glad you're here. And it's a project at 809 Northwest Florida Avenue. Type 3 historic major alteration application request for a 329 square foot addition at the rear of an existing 813 square foot dwelling in the Old Town Historic District. And our staff reviewer was Michelle Patrick, and we'll get to her in a staff report in just a minute. But first, I have to do this. Okay. This is a de novo hearing and is an initial evidentiary hearing of application number PLHIS 202-20837. This is an application for a request of an addition at 809 Northwest Florida. Burden of proof, the applicant has the burden of proving that he or she is entitled to the approval sought. The applicable criteria for this application include the Bend Urban Area Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 3 and Chapter 10.2 Historic Preservation Code, and the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. Hearing procedure. Testimony and evidence at this hearing must be directed toward the criteria set forth in the staff report or other criteria in the Bend General Plan or Bend Development Code that you believe is applicable, or any other criteria in the National Register of Historic Places program that any person believes apply to this decision. Failure on the part of any person to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford landmarks commissioners and parties to this proceeding an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the City Council or Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Additionally, failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the Landmarks Commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. All right, order of presentation. The hearing will be conducted in the following order. Staff will give a report. The applicant will then have an opportunity to offer testimony and evidence. Proponents of the application will then be given a chance to testify and present evidence. When all proponents have testified, opponents to the appeal will then be given a chance to testify and present evidence. After both proponents and opponents have testified, the applicants will be allowed to present rebuttal testimony, but may not present new evidence. At the Landmarks Commission's discretion, if the proponents presented new evidence on rebuttal, opponents will be recognized for rebuttal presentation. At the conclusion of this hearing, the staff will be afforded an opportunity to make any closing comments. The commission may limit the time period for presentation. Continuances before the close of the hearing, any person has the right to request an opportunity to present additional evidence, argument, or testimony regarding the application. If the hearing is continued or the record left open, the applicant shall also be allowed at least 7 days after the record is closed to all other parties submit final written arguments, but no new evidence in support of the application. And do any of the commissioners have any ex parte contacts, prior hearing observations, biases, or conflicts of interest to declare? If so, please state the nature and extent of those at this time. Okay. Kathy, anything? I think that is a no. Does any party wish to challenge any commissioner based on ex parte contacts, biases, or conflicts of interest? No? All right, then we will proceed. We will start with staff report.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
Oh. Okay. All right. So we are here today. It's a presentation to the Landmarks Commission for two projects at 809 Northwest Florida Avenue. We're going to go through these one by one. The first is a major alteration to the existing dwelling. It's going to be in the form of a new addition. And we also have a proposed garage ADU at the rear of the property. My name is Michelle Patrick. I'm an associate planner. I work with Heidi on historic preservation projects. So we're going to start with just a little bit of an overview of the property. It's 4,560 square feet in size. You can see here, property is located on Northwest Florida Avenue between Broadway and Wall Street. Abuts a 12-foot wide gravel alley to the south. The main zoning district here is RM, that's medium density residential.
Mhm.
So the property is developed with an existing 813 square foot craftsman style bungalow. This was constructed in 1923. And it's designated as historic contributing in the Old Town Historic District. And photos from the applicant are primarily from the 1990s, but the earliest photo of the property is from 1960. And no other historic photos were available at the rear of the property where most of the development is taking place here. So the primary facade, like I was saying, faces Northwest Florida. And just wanted to make note that the property has undergone a number of changes since it was approved in 2013 by the Landmarks Commission at that time. And so those changes included the removal of the detached historic contributing garage, that was previously located at the rear of the property. They enclosed the covered entry and constructed a new entryway, rebuilt a rear addition. There were window alterations to the west elevation. And there were two significant spruce trees that were removed from the front of the property as well. All those changes were approved. So that's just painting a picture of the existing conditions in a nutshell. The proposal today in front of you is a 329 square foot addition at the rear of the 813 square foot dwelling. And you can see the site plan on the left. All the work is taking place at the rear of the property. We found the addition is generally compatible with the existing dwelling due to the reduced ridgeline that you can see in this rendering. And its overall massing is smaller in size than the existing historic dwelling. Based on that location, it will have a limited impact on the primary facade that faces Northwest Florida. The proposed details are generally in line with the craftsman style of the existing dwelling and include knee braces, exposed rafter tails, tongue and groove soffits, a smooth shingle siding with a 6-inch reveal. They've also got 2 new windows proposed on the eastern elevation, which is this top one here. 1 new window, fixed pane proposed in the south-facing elevation, and then a bifold door that will lead out onto a deck on the west-facing elevation. And as we can see here, can't see any of those changes from that front facade. So I'm gonna go through essentially kind of the areas we were looking at more closely and then how this relates to the recommended conditions of approval. So the addition is generally compatible with the existing dwelling in regards to height, massing, and the proposed solids to voids. That said, we do have a few conditions recommended that will help ensure the integrity of the existing dwelling is maintained and the proposed materials are compatible with the existing structure. So some window details were provided, but we would like to see some more specific cut sheets for the proposed windows to ensure the manufacturer can produce those specific styles and that they are going to be aluminum clad wood and that the proposed divided lights are external. We were also a little surprised to see the proposed doorway on the existing dwelling. It's proposed to be widened. So as shown in the plans, the applicant proposes to replace this patio door here with a new doorway, but they also are proposing to widen the opening. So this is part of the addition that was approved in 2013. So it's not original, but in proposing to widen the doorway, they will be removing that existing trim along this window, which we found to be a little bit cramped. So while we recommend that, allowing them to replace the door is acceptable, keeping that doorway opening in the size it is now so that we can preserve the trim along the window and have more space between these two features would be more appropriate. The other element here, because the ridge line is going to be expanding on the new addition, it's creating this odd little crevice here in the ridge line. And so this is more concerning stormwater management. We just want to make sure that the flashing is installed appropriately and then this is thought of so that it's not going to do any damage to the existing historic structure. So we wanted to see some details on that to show how that would be accommodated. And this is something we will get into more with the next application, but because the height of the dwelling is shown on the plans as measured from finished floor, we do want to see revised elevations that show it from finished grade. And that's part of what the Bend Development Code requires. And also because the slope of the site isn't totally level, we want to make sure that the building height is calculated on an average basis. So it's the 3 points. We do have a handout available to help with that. And so overall, I mean, there's only 8 conditions. Some of these other ones that aren't specifically referenced are pretty standard, just making sure we get all building permits in and that standards details checklist. And so this concludes staff's presentation on the proposed addition, and I'm happy to answer any questions that may be.
Commissioners, are there any questions of Michelle at this time? Any?
So the rear door with the tight trim, it shows an infill wall. I think, is it maybe just like moving over? It showed an infill wall on the left-hand side on plan view.
Let me, on the elevations.
On plan.
A2-1.
On A2.1, detail 2, sheet note 2 says new wall infill. I'm wondering if it's not a sizing issue, if it's just a moving the wall over issue to try to, possibly like make room for the closet door to open or something. Maybe we can let the applicant address that after.
Yeah.
Mindy Lyman representing.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, you're going to have well, as soon as we're finished with questions.
we'll put it
staff,
in that.
you're next. Okay, we'll ask you those same questions. Any other questions for Michelle? All right. Thank you, Michelle. Mindy? Now it's your turn.
Okay, thank you.
We'll need your name for the record.
I do have something I can share to help.
You just want. Okay, just come and then watch the ones too. That's all. No, you're doing great.
You good? Mindy Lyman, the designer representing the owners, Vince and Debbie Rowley. And thank you for having us this evening and setting out time for us to meet with you guys this month. To the question about that Andy asked about the wall, yes, if we did go to a plan view to accommodate the addition where the existing home comes in contact with the addition, we do have that wall brought out just up to that existing window. I could share screen and we could look at it, or
Yes, please.
okay, or how to do that. Okay, great. Getting that view open.
Am I
I
working?
see an option there now.
Maybe the split screen. Is she doing it from the split
Okay,
screen?
I just
There you
accepted.
go.
Sorry, that I had to
Okay.
accept. There we go. Great.
It's working.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So this location here, the dark wall being the light wall being the existing, just to accommodate a little bit more space down this hallway passage, we did bump that out basically to the trim of that window. And Michelle noted this window is not original to the home. It was part of an addition that was approved in 2013. We didn't want to move it. We don't want to touch it. We don't necessarily want to change it in any way. So we just bumped out the wall to the trim there. The exterior elevation then, and that door that Heidi, or that Michelle was asking about. Let me get to that. The door that's existing is a little bit in disrepair. We'd like to change it out. The owners would also like to add more lighting to the interior of their home. So we talked about widening it and making it a taller door. It was a 5.0, 6.8 or 7 door, and then we'd like to widen it to a 6.0, 8-foot door to get lots of southern light into the house as the owners would like. Also, the existing door is not centered. And I can show a photo of that. So the other aspect was to center, pardon me, I need to pull up a photo of the original house, but it'll take me a moment. It's just off center to the west. So in replacing the door, we have also centered it over. So it's shoved it all towards the window. And we wanted to, keep the window there without moving it. And so we wanted to integrate the trim work for the door as part of the window trim. So it would kind of act as both. Again, that window was put in as part of a 213 addition there on the back. So it wasn't original, and neither was the door. And we wanted to add a little bit more light. So that's where we ended up with this design.
As an owner, it does have a bit of ugliness to that, but it all fits in and we're the only ones back there seeing it.
So can we,
When you're talking, use this microphone.
we'll need you to identify yourself.
Yeah, Vince Rowley, the owner. One of the owners, the other one's back there,
Yeah,
Debbie.
you can certainly join her.
Yeah, Vincent Rowley, I'm one of the owners, and I agree. I don't like the looks of it particularly, but it all fits in and it doesn't beat me over the head. So yeah, I agree. Another solution would be better, but it's really dark in our kitchen. It's just crazy dark. And the door that we're changing out was a salvage door that I put in, and it's starting to fail. So we want to put in a clad door and yep.
So here's a photo of the existing conditions as they are right now with the new addition there and the door that they have put in that's failing. And you can see there's just a tiny bit of siding between the two window and door.
Other questions for the applicants?
I was a little concerned about where those two roof pitches come together that Michelle mentioned where, do you think there's going to be room to keep that knee brace if you do a cricket up there?
I don't know yet, but we're going to put a cricket in. Yeah. And we can shorten up. The knee braces have, I don't know, 6 or 8 inches. I built out of salvage wood from the job site, those knee braces that are out back. And so I can change that one proportionally and make it fit in. I mean, it's just it's a site thing.
Yeah, we'll look at the cricket and see how high that needs to go to the wall.
Yeah.
Make sure we can maintain it.
Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know how to solve it except to adjust the size of the cricket somehow. I mean, the knee brace.
I have a question about the front porch. It looks like there's like a little post left over from.
Oh, so now you want me to finish my front porch too?
Is that,
She's got a tough crowd here.
I just don't know if that was a condition of approval was it?
I'll
20
finish it. Yeah, it's
It's
the
an
front.
unfinished.
Yeah, it's unfinished. Yeah.
But do we have an approval?
I never finished it from 2013, so
Okay.
I have the fir steps, the treads and everything in the house. I just haven't got out there and done it.
Okay.
We're living here permanently now, so we're
Sure, sure.
it's more expedient to us to get the ghetto house on the block fixed up. We got kind of a rough block, and this will help it a lot. So.
I have other questions and comments, but I want to give the applicant a chance to finish their presentation. before-
Absolutely. Do you have additional?
That item about the door and the window is really the only item we really wanted to see if we could maintain the design as it is, just to keep the light in the home. The other items, I think that we can accommodate, adjusting the roof height from grade, looking at the, watershed, make sure we're maintaining all of the site. That was another condition of approval, the cricket, the exterior details, and all of that provided.
We're going to use Marvin doors, and the divided light windows are going to be the ones that are approved by the National Park System. They look like they have putty for the mullion. So they're the most expensive, unfortunately, for us, but they'll look the best too. So.
In our narrative, and I know I didn't do this the preferred way, but we did provide some links to the products. Click on that and go right to the product, but spec sheets can be provided. That's the preferred.
Yeah,
method.
we'll get all that stuff for you. That's it. We're just trying, we moved from 2,500 square feet to 800, and it's untenable. We don't like each other any longer. So we need someplace to hide out. We need a bedroom, and we're gonna move our laundry from the kitchen. You know, it's just making it more efficient. It's just too small. And we're trying to do it in something that looks similar.
And, other questions, Jim?
Well, there are questions and comments, probably more. Some of them might probably directed towards the applicant. I mean, particularly, I know in the staff report, there's no stormwater plan or landscape plan. And there's an opportunity there to combine the two. Particularly in looking at what's there now, there's not much landscape other than the apple tree, which,
Not an apple, but anyway.
okay.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Okay. So
Okay.
I'm sorry.
What kind of tree is it?
That's a good question. It's got berries and nice blooms in the spring,
Okay, it's probably.
and we like it. It's a cool old tree. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I saw apple and the space that it was in, I was just going to point out, you were going to have problems with it in the future, and it might be good to include it in your landscape plan as removing it and replacing it with something more applicable or appropriate. I was also looking at that corner where the new portion of the structure joins the existing structure, and where the gables, the pitches hit. You've got a significant problem in that corner with water coming down and coming onto your porch. It's going to come down that gully, hit the other roof, run around the edge, and down into the corner of the porch. Your stormwater plan should address that as well. I think, well, I guess I'll save my other, because they're really just comments about some of the other drawings. Are not significant at this point. They're not really questions to you as much as, back to the other commissioners and staff. So I'll wait till we go into deliberation for those.
Okay. Any other questions for applicants?
Do you have plans for gutters and downspouts?
We haven't really discussed it. I
Uh,
think drainage plans probably. gonna help.
The original house had no gutters. And the rafter tails are at the goofiest angle I've ever seen. Not conducive to a gutter. They'd have to be modified, if not nipped off, which would significantly change the look of the house. I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to be looking at that in the future. So far, everything that we've had for rain and snow just hits the ground and seems to disappear. I don't know if these two projects are going to alter that, but the neighbors, theirs just runs off. And the newer one, the 90s one, has gutters. But otherwise, it's just all free fall.
As part of our response, the plan is to calculate.
Yeah.
So we need to come up with some sort of alternate method.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, it's not uncommon for houses not to have gutters in this area.
Yeah.
But I think you're gonna have a significant issue in that one corner on your deck. I know I had a house, my house originally here had no gutters, but it has a wraparound deck. And the roof does not extend all the way over the deck. So midway in my deck, when it rained or snowed, had a waterfall across until I put a gutter in on those locations. Just had to do something to move the water to locations where it was appropriate and not affecting either your lifestyle or others.
Yeah, a gutter might work in the back where you're referring to, and then the other two sides could stay on natural and look great from the road. But yeah, I was wondering about that too, if we weren't going to have a problem back there.
Other? I have confusion in my own mind about the exterior lighting. The addition is going to have different kind of exterior light from the original house? Or are we talking about the ADU having different kinds of light?
I think they want the ADU to, yeah, because there's an existing light there currently that was approved, and
Okay.
it doesn't affect much. It's just a little area light.
Okay, all right. Questions? Any other questions? No? No? Okay, thank you very much. Um, any other questions for Michelle before we close the hearing? Any other questions for Michelle? Michelle, do you have a comment that you'd like to make?
I would just add about the lighting. So all lighting will need to meet the development code, which is fully cut off and shielded down.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if that was looked at in 2013, but any new lighting you put on the addition or the ADU will have to meet that. So based on the pictures you have now, that's not one we would allow. So there may not be an opportunity to match those as they exist. But we can talk about fixtures when you get to that. point
Okay.
too. Yeah.
No, downward type of lighting.
Yeah.
Mhm, yeah. Okay, all right. Well, then we'll go ahead and close this hearing.
Okay.
Comments from commissioners? Anything?
Sure, I have a couple of comments just about some of the staff comments about the windows under the eaves. In particular, I just wanted to point out, when you look at the elevations that were presented, the view line is well above street level. And
I think that's what the next project.
on the next one. Is it, am I looking at the wrong one? Well, I think the comment was made in a couple of places. And just the, a street view from a, person on the street, I don't think the conflict will be an issue. You will see the top trim, just because of there's no, it's not a solid, under layment underneath the fascia board. But
Quick comments for commissioners? Comment for the commissioners? Any?
Yeah, and well, I'll say on the, that would be the east elevation. There's really no distinction other than foundation between the, original and existing. The foundation is shown differently. There's no, it is right at the 5-foot setback, the side setback. Not a lot of width to work with there. And I don't really see any opportunity for like a jog or a trim piece or anything else. So I think consistent with how we've approved a lot of other applications, I would say that the foundation serves to distinguish between old and new in a sufficient way to meet the Bend Historic Code.
The differentiation you're looking for?
The differentiation.
Yeah, the differentiation.
Oh, the roof line does give you a natural break line too, as to the addition versus the original. You know, with landscaping and planting, the foundation is going to be all but invisible within 10 years, in theory.
Was in. Other comments? Then I will entertain the motion. Oh, Kathy, do you have any comments?
Oh, yeah, her hand is raised.
Is she there?
Oh, she can't talk.
Unmute her.
I'm thinking about the trim on that back door and the window, and I believe that I've seen examples of what they're proposing in other houses in our neighborhood. And given that that was an alteration in 2013 for both the door and the window, I don't see any problem with the new solution that they are proposing.
All right. Super, thank you.
Mhm.
I will entertain a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve with all the staff recommendations minus the recommendation to alter the south facing double door.
Okay, and this is the ADU. Oh. Let me have his recommendation.
maybe that-
Right here, Jerry.
Thanks.
Maybe it's not.
That means an approval with the recommendations of number one. Building code permits, number two, standard details checklist. Prior issuance of a building permit, submitted site plan must be revised to deal with stormwater. Okay, the fourth recommendation, exterior lighting shall conform. All right, that was one of the recommendations. Okay, that's a flare down. Building permit, revised elevations. Plan must be revised to show the replacement doors to fit the existing doorway. So it's numbers 6.
So, yeah, I would.
All right, but as part of
Motion is
the,
everything but
and 7 is there. And what do we got? 8, if the original to the dwelling, the knee braces proposed to be removed to accommodate the new addition must be reinstalled with new construction. Thank you, Derek. And that, okay, so the motion was to approve the project, leaving out the staff with all staff recommendations except for the one about changing the
Number 6.
this door going to the back. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Okay, discussion.
most of the changes are to the rear of the property where they're almost invisible. And it brings a livability to the house. I think that the design was given with a thought towards keeping the primary facade as it was with its unfinished porch.
Other discussion? No other discussion? Okay, I'd also like to comment on the design of the addition really does match the original house. Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Kathy? forward to?
I think she technically shouldn't be voting.
Oh, she's an alternate. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. The addition is approved. Okay, now let's move on to the ADU. I lost my sheets again.
Maybe I'm gonna steal the screen from you.
Okay.
Briefly. And then I'll have it back after.
Don't need to do anything to let you have it.
I think I got still, yeah.
All right, now that takes us to item 5 on our agenda. Okay, public hearing PLHIS 202209220. Okay. This is the de novo hearing and is an initial evidentiary hearing of PLHIS 202209220. This application is a request for a garage and ADU accessory dwelling unit at 809 Northwest Florida in Bend, Oregon. The applicant has the burden of proving that he or she is entitled to the approval sought. The applicable criteria for this application include the Bend Urban Area Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 3 and Chapter 10.2, Historic Preservation Code, and the Secretary of the Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties. Testimony and evidence at this hearing must be directed toward the criteria set forth in this staff report or other criteria in the Bend General Plan or Bend Development Code that you believe is applicable, or any other criteria in the National Register of Historic Places program that any person believes apply to this decision. Failure on the part of any person to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford the landmarks commissioners and parties to this proceeding an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the City Council or Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Additionally, failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the Landmarks Commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. We will have a hearing order, a presentation. Staff will give a report. Applicant will then have an opportunity to offer testimony and evidence. Proponents of the application will then be given a chance to testify and present evidence. When all proponents have testified, opponents of the appeal will then be given a chance to testify and present evidence. After both proponents and opponents have testified, the applicants will be allowed to present rebuttal testimony, but may not present new evidence. At the Landmarks Commission's discretion, if the proponents presented new evidence on rebuttal, opponents may be recognized for a rebuttal presentation. At the conclusion of this hearing, the staff will be afforded an opportunity to make any closing comments. The commission may limit the time period for presentation. Before the close of the hearing, any person has the right to request an opportunity to present additional evidence, argument, or testimony regarding the application. If the hearing is continued or the record left open, the applicant shall also be allowed at least 7 days after the record is closed to all parties to submit final written arguments, but no new evidence in support of the application. Do any of the commissioners have any ex parte contacts, prior hearing observations, biases, or conflicts of interest to declare? If so, please state the nature and extent of those. Kathy, anything to declare?
No, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Does any party wish to challenge any commissioner based on ex parte contacts, biases, or conflicts of interest? No? All right, then we will proceed. Joe, you're on.
Right, so this is our second application for the property. And so as Jerry mentioned, this request is for a new garage and ADU, 425 square feet on the first floor for the garage and the second floor for the ADU is proposed. You can see from the rendering here, the Garage will have a single bay garage door facing the alley, and then there'll be exterior stairs on the west elevation that will provide the main entrance for the ADU. We have a little snip of the site plan over here to the left, and you can see the garage and ADU is actually set back about 12 feet from that rear property line, and that is to accommodate development code requirements for backing and maneuvering, where the standard setback would typically be 5 feet. And the new structure will be set back or separated from that addition we just looked at by 6 feet.
Okay.
It's sticky. So this is a view of the rear of the property taken from the alley provided by the applicant. So this area was historically occupied by 2 other historic structures, as you can see on the Sanborn maps. This is from 1950. And from this map, you can also generally see that accessory structures were fairly common practice here at the rear of the properties along the alley in early development. So the new 2-story structure incorporates craftsman details that are very similar to the proposed addition that we just looked at, including aluminum clad wood windows, knee braces under the gabled roof line, exposed rafter tails, tongue and roof soffits, fascia with 2-inch trim, and straight edge single shingle siding with 6-inch reveal. So on each of these elevations, so we've got 2 fixed pane windows with divided lights proposed on both the north and south elevations on the dormers, and on the 1st story of the north facing elevation. The east facing elevation contains 2 4x1 single hung windows, and the west facing elevation is entrances. So you've got a man door to the garage, your primary entrance for the ADU, and another 4x1 single hung window just adjacent to that door. So I did want to talk about building height for a little bit here. So the burden of proof continually references the proposed height of the ADU at 17 feet, 11 3/8 inches, and that is shown on here as well. But this is measured from finished floor. And again, we've talked about this a little bit in the addition, but building height needs to be measured from finished grade. So when we measure this from finished grade, the proposed ADU and garage is actually 19 feet, 6 inches in height. And so just keeping that in mind, the applicant did provide some detailed information on how this perceived height is actually a little bit less. So they are proposing to grade the rear of the property, and you can see this here. There's a little bit of a slope going back towards the alley. And so the garage will sit a little bit lower than the existing dwelling. I think they called out 14 inches, but that's again measured from finished floor. So it looks like it's about 10 inches from finished grade as far as that elevation difference. All in all, the 19.5 feet does exceed the height of the existing primary dwelling. And the historic contributing garage, which is the nearest historic contributing structure to the property. So that's just directly behind the property. This is 810 Northwest Delaware that this is addressed on. I don't know the height of this structure per se, but it looks about 15 feet. And I'll let anyone refute that if they have a better measurement estimate. But so in general, though, this block does not have that many contributing structures on it. The nearest one on the block is 827 Northwest Florida, which is 2 properties away. And so this proposed structure doesn't necessarily exceed the height of other historic buildings close by, but there are a number of examples that we have in the staff report that show new construction or historic buildings being around 20 feet or more. So it is comparable in certain ways. The applicant also provided a exhibit of the slope on this block. So you can kind of see, just looking at the property, which is 809 Florida, it does drop down slightly from right to left. And so the perceived height of the garage and ADU at the back of that property will naturally be diminished due to it just being at lower grade naturally than the properties further west, and the other historic contributing dwelling on the street, which is 827 Florida. So there aren't a lot of examples of 2-story ADUs in the historic district, but the proposed height of 19.5 feet at finished grade is below other single and two-story structures elsewhere in the district, both contributing, not contributing, and new construction. So overall, staff found that the height was an acceptable proposal. And this is a rendering the applicant provided that shows the ADU's visibility from the street. You know, these are only renderings, so this is approximate, but I think it does help kind of demonstrate the potential view from Northwest Florida. And this existing tree that is an undetermined species will also help screen it slightly from view. And then notably, there's another large willow tree on the neighboring property to the east that will also screen it from view on the other side. So based on the proposal, we do have a few recommended conditions here. So first and foremost is making sure that height proposal is shown accurately. So we'll ask that these elevations be revised to show it from finished grade and calculating the average building height. So we have an accurate idea of what's getting proposed here. And we also recommending that applicant provide additional grading details in the form of a grading plan. So we have a better idea to the extent of which the rear of the property is proposed to be graded. And kind of moving more into the design of the garage and ADU. We had several recommendations regarding the proposed windows on the structure. The proposed second story windows are slightly obscured by the rafter tails extending from the eaves along the north and south elevations. And so we did recommend the window trim be reduced in size slightly to ensure the trim is fully visible. And similarly, the placement of windows and doors in the east and west facing elevations leave windows and doors partially blocked by that fascia board. So along the east facing elevation, we recommended these windows be reduced in size so you can fully see them, or preferably that there be one window on this elevation, which is common practice under gabled roof lines in the historic district. And on the west facing elevation, the issue of trim visibility is kind of replicated here. We recommend the door be relocated a little bit further south so that you can see that full trim. And it's not obscured behind the fascia board. And we did find that this 4x1 window directly adjacent to the door felt a little cramped under the roof line, and we recommended a smaller window be installed here instead with fewer or no divided lights to kind of help keep the balance of glazing this facade. And then this is just a pretty general recommendation, just some more specific material cut sheets be submitted to confirm that the manufacturer offers those proposed styles as shown on the elevations. We did get a very specific link to the overhead garage door, which I thank you for. And yeah, just so that all those proposed styles can also be produced in wood or aluminum backwood. And so there were a few more recommended conditions of approval with this one that I'm sure we'll chat about. The ones not referenced were again pretty standard conditions here. And I also forgot to mention we did have one public comment submitted prior to the hearing. It was in support of the proposal, but they did also support the addition as well. That's the extent of the presentation for the new construction.
Okay. Questions for Michelle and commissioners? No questions for Michelle? No, okay. Applicants, if you'd like to make the presentation.
Thank you.
I think you should still have the powers to share. If you don't, let me know.
Again, like with the addition, majority of the conditions find no objections to from our end, plan to fully provide the information as far as items 1 through 3. I'll just kind of go down the list. Item 4 has to do with the water shedding issue. Again, and with the ADU and we've reduced that below grade just slightly, we may have exacerbated that issue a bit. And the slope of the roof going north-south means a lot of that water is coming straight toward the alley or back towards the property. So we don't have the opportunity to go off to the side, which would have a little bit more absorbing ground to cover. Although we do propose to do permeable pavers in the driveway to help with all of this. What we would like to maybe discuss is we think that in part of trying to remedy the water shedding issue and keep it all on site and also not flood the Rollies' new garage, perhaps to actually bring the ADU back up to grade a little bit. So we don't have that sloping back towards the building issue. So it's about 10 inches, what Michelle calculated from the grade of the ADU. So it'd just be coming up another 10 inches, adding 10 inches back onto the overall building height. If our building height was about 19 feet, getting closer to about 20, a little less than 20 feet in overall height, if we could bring the ADU back up to grade. If that would help enough to.
Specifically, then how high would the ADU be?
Yeah. So,
19?
well, my calc was 17. Michelle, what was your calculation?
From top of the ridge to finished grade, I had 19.5. And you kind of zoom in on your measurements there. too. That is, we go from this slab.
Right, so from 19 feet 0.5 inches, so we'd be adding 10 to that.
It takes us up to, what was that,
19, 10.5.
19 feet, 10 inches? Okay, thank you.
So that was that item we wanted to add to the table, maybe for discussion, because maybe it'll help us, with the water issue. The other item, that was item 4. 5, exterior lighting will provide something that meets the requirement. Average building height, yeah, it's just a calculation, not a problem there. The number 7, and I think we also the window and door heights being cramped under the elevation. I'm providing this section just to show how, in addition to trying to get the building a little bit below grade to minimize its height, we've also really kind of shrunk down that upper level of the ADU. This red dashed line here represents the 8-foot head height. And so we're trying to keep that down as much as would be comfortable with an interior meet code and just try to keep that overall massing to a minimum. And so it's kind of created a little bit of the cramping issue with the windows and the door. I think there's 2 ways maybe that we could resolve that. Lifting the ceiling up a little bit more. Or, because right now the head height for the windows is already at 6'6". The door is at 6'8". So that's pretty low. And if we shrink the windows, I wouldn't want to shrink them from the head height. Let me go to an elevation here.
Would you not then have an issue with egress on the 1-bedroom window? If you brought the sill head up, if you were to shrink the window?
Yeah, that'd be another item. These 2 windows on this east elevation, it was recommended that we go to 1. On the interior, we do have a wall here, but separating a bedroom from a bathroom. We could bring them a little closer together to kind of help with that. And these windows here under the rafter tails, so they are below the rafter tails, as the rafter tails would slope up. So the window trim wouldn't be in contact with the rafter tails. And from the ground level, as you're looking up, I think that trim would be fully in view. And shrinking these down also might make them a very odd size. Right now they're 2 by 3, which seems fairly typical, although I know there are smaller windows in the district that we've seen. So we'd like to keep them the same size, just to avoid it getting so small that maybe they look kind of dinky, for lack of another word. So we'd like to keep those windows on the table. We could adjust, how far these windows are apart, possibly look at the size, but one of these would be an egress here on the east elevation. And the door and this window here, I don't think we have any issue with shrinking the side window. I do want to not push the stair forward back into the alley any further into that 12-foot setback. So it's kind of positioned where it is. for that.
To be honest, both of the issues of the grading and this window issue, we tried to mitigate the height because we thought we were gonna get so much pushback on the height. I'd like to see this 3 inches tall, or 3 foot taller, so that the windows, the height in there, everything could be the building back up to grade. I'm just saying that everything that's been done has shrank this thing and put it underground so that the commission would approve, the height and massing issue. So if we could get some relief, I mean, it's not exceptionally high. There's 2 houses on the block that are equally as high. And it's in the alley. So if we could get some relief on that, I think it'd make this a better project for everybody. Including the people, the munchkins that have to use the ADU. And it's really cramped for light. As it is, all these windows are small. I'd like bigger windows and everything, but if we could get a little relief on bringing it up for the request of the city and then maybe raising that roof line 8 or 10 inches to get some height in that ADU. Does it more eloquent here.
So are you proposing that?
I would love to propose it.
So does that change the specs on the proposal enough to say you need to come back with another proposal?
I would say no. I mean, we're asked to shrink the windows, we're asked to do this, it's given share. We're spending a lot of money to improve this property and make it look better. I'm just trying to get a good product here, and I don't think this is overshadowing the historic value of the size of the buildings in the old town. It's not nearly the biggest, it's not nearly the smallest.
If I could chime in regards to how much of a change this would maybe be. I mean, by bringing it back up to grade, we're messing with a lot less. It's going to be a lot closer to as is. And the dimensions and scale of building wouldn't really change at all. It's just elevations are gonna lift up a little bit. Oop, just comes up.
Yeah.
As far as the roof height, I'm not proposing very much. I'd say somewhere between 6 to 8, maybe 10 inches at the max. To be able to lift up the barge boards and the fascia and the rafter tails up a little bit, get a little bit more breathing room around the fenestrations. I think it would look a lot nicer. But yeah, not a lot of, inches, less than probably 2 feet, less than 30 inches. Definitely in height that would be coming up. And it would just be, a lift up of a few inches of the roof, all the forms, slopes, everything would remain the same. I would like to take the windows up to 6, 8, match all the doors all the way around the ADU. And so those would be the changes. I think that would be the most influential to the look.
So I missed some of your numbers. A little hard of hearing. So you want to raise that roof then, what'd you say, 30 inches?
I would like to raise the roof, the actual roof. I don't know exactly. 6 to 8 inches.
6 to 8 inches.
Yeah. Basically the width of the barge board.
6 to 8 inches And then that would make the total overall of the building then would go up to, thank you, 20 feet, 5 inches.
Based on not diminished grade.
And,
That was a maximum.
no, that's not maximum
And the number, Derek,
Yeah, but based on. just
based
the
on
rough
the 8
measurement.
inches, not the 6 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just So we have that for the record.
So how high could we go before it would be a problem?
I,
I'm just curious. I don't have any idea
I,
what the tilt point is and when it falls over and it's no good, we can't do this. And we're not trying to do that, but we are trying to mitigate the water issue
mhm.
and the windows.
Oh, don't get me wrong, I
Okay.
sense that you've been working with staff and in a very cooperative manner. But the idea of raising the roof, would you say 3 feet?
No. There's no 3 feet here.
Okay,
Yeah.
3 feet would be.
That was her
No,
wish list. I
I
That
think.
would be
understand.
wish list, yeah.
I understand that's a tilt button. I get
Okay.
it. I'm not suggesting that at all.
In the inception of the historic district, when we first put it together and first had rounds of this on Landmarks Commission, two dwellings over garages were just not allowed at all.
Yeah.
There were no examples of it in the historic model at all in the district. And it was not something that ever happened. Over the years, with the change in zoning, it has become something because of the density model the city wants. That has happened. You know, state law too. Yeah, I know. Yeah. But the historic district was one that was always sacrosanct when it came to when it went in behind the existing historic, which the additional building will never be taller than the historic structure, never overshadow. It seems as though in the last 15 plus years, however long I've been gone, that has changed a good bit. And from an alley perspective, we were getting a little loose with the numbers to a point where my instinct is one that has a little bit too much leeway without being able to say we're going by what we're presented with. But if we're simply talking about, not having to regrade as presented, it doesn't change. We start changing plate heights and stuff, then the plans start changing. The overall look changes. It gets me a little concerned. As presented without the grading. Just my 2 cents.
Would you like to go ahead and finish your presentation?
Sorry.
And we'll go ahead and do.
Yeah.
Comments.
Couple small things. I wanted to harken back to our narrative. And look at a couple of precedents. This structure, there, 430 Florida. And yeah, there aren't a lot of examples, just a couple. We searched very hard out in the snow, walking the streets, looking for 2-story structures that resembled what we were trying to do. And this was one of them on 430 down the street. I think that this was constructed in 2014, so a little while back, but it has a very similar look and feel to what we're presenting. But actually what our design proposes is actually a much smaller structure. I don't know exactly how high this is, but it is definitely wider. And so therefore, but the proportions is probably pushing above 20 feet. It is a 2-story home next to it. So there's that. And I have another example somewhere too. This here is the 2-story home that's directly across the alley. This home that just cut off of the image is the home that has the detached garage. It's right directly across from the ADU. So this 2-story home is right within eyesight oh, here it is. This was difficult to get some photos of, but here's another example of a two-story ADU with a garage in the back. I know I don't have a photo of that here, but the reason I wanted to include this in the narrative was to show a two-story structure in the rear of a single-story structure.
Mhm.
And I think that maybe concludes unless we have anything else.
No, I think the only stumbling block was those window heights and the grading.
And what is the elevation relative to your finished floor datum of the alley? Is the alley higher than?
Let me share with you how I came up with this information. This might. What you're looking at is national data. Anyone can look up online. You pick a point and you get an elevation. I know it's hard to read. You can see the grade coming from north to south. And then on the back, we've got this steeper grade. That contour line shows us that we're crossing over a foot line. And from this point, this is 3,641. And the neighbor is 41. And this is 3,642 and a half. So it's about a foot from here to here. So I know that's not exactly what you're asking, but that's the closest information that I can pull up right now.
I think our elevations are off a finished floor and not off the average of the site, as Michelle suggested. That's. But Michelle has our building higher, and yet it's below the average. So I'm confused by that also.
Yeah, Vince is correct. So my 17-foot 11 3/8 is from 0 point, which I put at the finished floor of the main house. That's the
Right.
base point I was using.
Yeah, and then finished floor of a garage is ground elevation unless you
Yeah,
have a ramp or something.
no, we're just gonna do slab on grade.
So that puts the total height at more like 19'6", just under 19'6". That you've suggested you'd like to move the grading up 10 inches.
Well, it'd be more of a keeping the grade where it is.
Yeah, but from the presented elevation.
Yeah.
And then there was a second proposal to make the top plate, the distance between the second floor and the top plate higher by, I think you said
6 to 8.
6 to 8 inches.
6 to 8 inches.
Right. So right now top plates with from 0 being finished floors, 14'5'7".
Okay.
Okay,
So we're 21 feet above grade then.
21 feet above grade 10. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you, I'm sure, sorry if it was in here, but can you describe the material that you plan for paving the driveway?
Yeah, I don't think we included that in the narrative.
We haven't picked a product, but it'd be a pervious paper of some sort.
Okay.
You know, just interlocking. Type of things.
And depending on, the absorbency and how much water goes through, we could find, if we need more, we could play
Yeah,
around with the products that's available to get what we need.
Yeah, I'd prefer not to have it sloping down into the garage, but from the comments, I think the logical thing to gutter that back. West line.
So go to the roof.
So the south elevation.
Am I understanding you correct then that the center line of the alleyway is higher than the slab? Okay.
Yeah, by 14 inches. We did that to mitigate the height.
Okay, sorry, one more. You're in control, right, Mindy?
Mhm.
Okay, can you go to your sheet, just the exterior elevations, A 3.2? Yeah, the top right elevation, that's gonna be the west elevation, right? So the rafter tail, the angle on the rafter tail, I think that those are parallel, that you're maintaining the same angle versus you're maintaining the same
Yes.
like angle in space relative to the ground, and rather than the same angle relative to the building height. I'm wondering if that was intentional or if you had a reason for that.
Well, I don't have a precedent from the original home for this slope. Right, so this slope is much closer to the original home, and I was able to estimate
Was
what
gutter
that
not-
angle would look like.
Non-gutter
so-
friendly.
Yeah, so this, steeper slope on the ADU is purely, this is one way to do this. Not exactly sure what would be appropriate, and definitely lean on your suggestions on what that angle should look like. Yes, it is the same angle relative to the ground.
If we did the gutter though, that would just be a barge rafter covering the end of the gutter. And you just lop off the tails. Or plumb cut and then run the gutter. And then those barge rafters, at the end, you wouldn't see the gutter. I mean, that's the way I would do it. And that might get complicated. It might need a little block up there or something. Unfortunately. Or maybe the gutter just shows a little bit. Without the math on it.
No more questions.
No more questions? Any other questions for the applicant? Is there anybody out there who would like to speak in favor of the proposal? Go ahead. You certainly may. If you wish. Okay. Is there anybody? Did you come forward if you want to speak? I realize you own it.
Oh, man, you unleashed it.
Go ahead and state your name, please.
Hi, my name is Debbie Rowley and I'm an owner. Vince and Mindy have spent a long time on this. And one thing that I think that it's important for you guys to know is who we are. And if you've ever been down 809 Northwest Florida, it's a pretty scary neighborhood and it's a dump. And we're willing to put in $450,000, maybe $500,000 into this house because this is where we're going to live. We sold our house in Seattle recently in August, and now we're here full time. And it means a lot to us. This is the house my husband and I are going to die in. And it means a lot to us to have the things, and they've spent a lot of time making sure that we were doing things the right way. And to talk about the windows looking squished and, it's all arbitrary, whatever that word is, arbitrarial. So I get it. If we're not in the right codes, I can deal with that. I can deal with the codes. But if it becomes subjective of the way a window looks, our house is so dark, you guys, and it's depressing. So we have to have light. And maybe, just maybe, somebody in the neighborhood would put money into their house and fix it up. Just maybe. Because right now it's a pretty scary place. And if you looked at what we uploaded, I did a video because I think you have to actually walk that alley and see how scary it is. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very
They're
much.
the experts. I'm just the emotional one.
No.
Where's the link to Debbie's video in the narrative?
The alley is depressing. It's dilapidated.
Was there anybody else on the video?
We have no one raising their hands to speak.
Okay, is there anyone out there, either here in the room or on the internet, who would like to speak against this project?
I'm not seeing any hands raised to speak against the project, so I'm gonna go ahead and say no.
Okay, thank you very much. And Michelle, would you like to make a closing comment?
No, I think there's a lot of information getting bounced around, so whatever we decide on, just sure that we have specific path forward. would be helpful. No further comments.
Okay, thank you. Well, then we'll close the hearing, public hearing. Comments from commissioners?
Sure. Now that I'm on the right page. As, you know, I don't have an issue really with the placement of the windows relative to the roof line and trim. I think street view, walking by, you're gonna see it. I think, given the scale of the house and the scale of the addition, it's tight, it's cozy. It just sort of fits that tight and coziness. And, you know, I don't have a real issue with the window placements and trim at all. I think, you know, I don't have a significant issue with the applicant wanting to raise the grade. It is going to affect their stormwater management plan, because you'd be putting water that comes off the roof on, you know, going down into the alleyway. And code says you keep your water on your property. So you're going to have to deal with it somewhere. And catching it and moving it, you know, and treating it appropriately. So I think, to me, you know, there are a couple of options here. I mean, you know, I could vote to approve it as presented with the conditions that staff has made, other than the ones about moving the windows, and I've got those numbers identified, and I'd be okay with changing the grade of the garage back up, as long as a stormwater management plan showed how that was being dealt with. All of the other stuff about raising roof lines, I mean, you're changing elevations, you're changing a lot of stuff. And I think, you know, that's a revised application that would need to come back, and that means time and money. And that's up to the applicant if they want to do that. I would not want to make that many conditions in this hearing at this point to, you know, we really shouldn't be designing on the fly in meetings like this. So I would rather deal with the application that's here and whether or not the commission can approve it or not. And it could be up to the applicant to withdraw their application and resubmit. You know, the other option is to, you know, to ask for continuance and then come back. But quite frankly, I'm comfortable with the application is presented with, you know, a couple of changes. As I said, you know, removing conditions on the windows and trim. And then I would change one word or add two words in the recommended condition of approval number 4. After grading, I would always add stormwater management.
Okay.
Because grading doesn't always do stormwater management. And stormwater management then gets to whether gutters are placed, how they're placed. Do you need a trench drain or something to catch the water at the end of the driveway if the building is lifted? Because otherwise you're gonna, you know, you're always gonna be tracking mud into your garage.
Right.
So I think that I'll leave my comments at that for now.
Thank you. Tom, comments?
In regards to the height, I think I would prefer to see it actually get a little bit taller on the second story. I think having it be 6 inches taller would be would look better than having just such a compressed appearance between the windows and the roof. So I think it's always a compromise of the overall scale of the building and then trying to make each of the elements work on the facade, but I think my preference would be for making it slightly taller.
Andy, comment?
Yeah, I'm if there were sidewalks on Florida, I don't think you'd be able to see this from either the sidewalk in front of the house or the sidewalk across the street. Even if we raised the base of it 10 inches, even if we raised the height of it, I am receptive to Jim's comment that the elevation changes more significantly if we add story height, which I again agree is probably worthwhile, but that could be something that would have to be resubmitted with new elevations. But I could see us approving taking that whole thing and moving it up 10 inches on the documents that we have. I am going to recommend a condition of approval just for, I think you would do it anyway on a new build, but the two things that I see on ADU, two-story ADUs over garages in this neighborhood that I don't like. Well, one, I think that you have a nicely sized garage door, and double wide garage doors are kind of specifically addressed in our code. So I think that's a good thing. The other thing I don't like to see is the refrigerant lines of an outdoor condensing unit on the outside of the building. So I would like to add, and I know this is just a rendering and you don't show them on the outside, but I would hate for it to be the last thing installed and for the refrigerant lines to be on the outside with those vinyl covers on them. And then again, this is the east elevation, so it's possible it could be seen. It would be a pretty no nonsense thing to do.
Okay. Eric, comment?
Sure. I agree with Jim completely on the windows. The truncated trims and the crunching and the scrunching and all of that happens all throughout the district. My house on Georgia had the same thing where we had clipped windows, clipped trims. It's just how it worked when they built the houses. So I don't have a problem with the trim lines, the bunching of the window and the door, nor the size of the windows. The idea that with the trim from, as Jim had said, from the alley looking up, you're going to see the full trim with the tails. So I don't see that as a problem either. Going up at grade is one thing that I can see the necessity for the stormwater. I can see the necessity for making things work on the site, especially with the alley being 14 inches taller at the center line. Raising the plate heights is a different plan, and that would be a different submission to me. In looking at the plan as presented, with taking that box and just simply moving it up at grade is not a substantial change, and I don't see that as being something that would trigger a redo, but changing the plate heights, because all of a sudden you have different solids to voids, you've got different trim lines. The only other thing I saw is on number 3 on the thank you. I could not get there. On the staff recommendations was the exposed rafter tails, and I think that the potential for there need to be a gutter on that garage side where the barge boards are cut to the angle, but that the tails are clipped off might have to be noted if there were to be a motion in that regard. And yeah, I do think number 7 and number 9 on the windows could be eliminated.
I usually don't make comments, but I think in this case, we need to deal with the presentation of the project that we have in front of us, rather than going back and now, well, maybe if we did this racing or maybe did that, and on and on. I mean, that could be endless. We could be here all night if we tried to help you be an architect, which I am not. I mean, we certainly would take a long time. Okay, so commissioners, I would certainly want to focus in on what we have here in front of us. Kathy, do you have comments for us?
I guess my only comments are very consistent with what the other commissioners have stated, that raising the building, the 10 inches to put it back up at grade is not going to greatly impact the line of sight from the street. I do think that if any additional changes are made to the rafter boards or to the window heights or any of the structure, it does need to be resubmitted. And I agree, I think it might look better if those changes were implemented, but as you said, that's not what we have in front of us tonight.
Unless applicants want to request a continuation. And we hold off on a motion and a decision on this and come back with a new set of plans that does show the raised heights.
Here, could I ask clarification?
Go ahead, what?
So are we saying that we're potentially willing to approve raising the grade of the building?
That will all be in the motion that gets made.
But we're still consideration, but if we raise the height of the roof up place, that would require a continuation or a
It was,
recital.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I think you've got that. That's my intent anyway. Heidi, go.
Oh, I'm sorry, we were just talking about processes and procedures.
Okay,
Just to, share what we were just discussing, if you did choose to continue the hearing, then it would be considered a modification of application.
Mhm.
So we would need to renotice the application and, citing the proposed changes that you're making to what's originally been submitted. And there would be an additional fee with that. And you could put the application on hold though.
Yeah.
Because we are subject to a 120-day review period. And that would just give you more time if you needed to revise plans at all.
Well, we only needed a week to revise plans. How much time would you guys need to complete the continuation?
So basically, because we need to notice the hearing again, we would have to follow that 21-day notice procedure. And, obviously we still need to put the staff report together, et cetera. So it
Likely
does.
not next month.
Michelle, would we be able to get this back on next month's meeting?
I would need to check the calendar.
I don't think so, because this is a 28-day month,
Oh.
so it's a 2-month process and it's 28 days.
I'm just seeing on the.
Hmm.
If you would, I think if you were able to get us some revised plans and a modification application within a week, we could get on within 2 months because of the.
Right.
That would be.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
In 2 months, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I look, we've already had 2 permits on one little site here.
Mhm.
We're paying extra for that. I say no. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to us to go another 2 months and pay another fee. This is.
And
It
it's
becomes,
sad.
it's just, it becomes onerous at a point. So we're out. We'll stick with what we got.
The plan that as we have
As
presented
we have
here.
it here.
And so then, I will entertain a motion from the commission.
I've got a,
To either approve or reject,
Well,
or approve with recommendations.
Sure.
Or whatever it happens to be.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to take a crack at it.
I'm glad you are. All right,
I propose that we approve as presented with the staff recommendations. So we are going to want to have language in number 3 that allows for the rafter tails on the south side. Be able to be altered for the application of a gutter if needed. That's item number 7 and item number 9 be eliminated from the staff recommendations, that the windows may remain as presented.
Also number 11.
Mr. 11 as well. I'm sorry.
and number 11 as well.
Yes,
Okay.
And then
and
adding my 2 words to the item number 4, stormwater management following grading.
Item number 4, you want stormwater management?
Want that to be part of your motion?
yes,
Okay. That's it.
Collaborative.
Okay. Anything else you would like to add here?
No, at this time, that
Would you-
looks,
Would you?
oh, yes, I do. And that is that the grade may be brought back up to
Great.
aggregate grade approximately 10 inches higher than is presented.
To match the finished floor elevation of the proposed,
Yours probably wouldn't match because we would
we have a, yeah,
Yeah, just that grade.
that grade.
Okay, so then
Finished
that would
grade.
be a separate recommendation.
Yeah, that would be number 12.
Well, for eliminating seven.
Well, sure.
9, and 10. Okay, so then the grade brought that up.
Approximately 10 inches.
We had the one about the condenser unit lines being interior.
And which else was that?
Addition to that would be the 13 until revised numbers are presented, and that would be that the condenser lines for the HVAC unit be hidden away within rather than external mounted.
Internal to the garage.
Okay. Didn't, got that. All right, there's our proposal. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a proposal and a motion and a second. Now, discussion.
Does staff have all the motions clear? I saw the puzzled look on the face.
I have scribbled
No more puzzle than mine.
a number.
Okay. Let's go
Okay,
ahead and
okay.
clear it up so that Michelle has
Sure.
a clear view of the motion.
The motion was approved as presented with staff recommendations with a modification to number 3 that allows for the rafter tails to be cut to allow for gutters. That number 7 is out, that number 9 is out, that number 11 is out, and the windows may be built in as presented. Number 12 would be that the grade go back to the approximate 10-inch rise of natural grade, increasing the building height by that 10 inches based on grade. And number 13 is the HVAC lines that come off the condenser unit are internally mounted rather than external.
Jim's.
There was
Oh,
additional language on item 4.
I got a note
Stormwater.
there. Yep.
About that one. So I was specifically added that because they were grading the site. So we can still ask for a stormwater management plan, but we don't necessarily need the grading and fill details if they're not.
If they're not, yeah.
I can modify that.
I apologize. I'm a landscape architect and I do grading and drainage. It's never just,
I mean, usually it's the same plan.
I'm not allowed to at this point.
Michelle, you
We
go
just
ahead
run
and
it towards the
renumber those
Yes.
recommendations.
Taking out the.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Andy? You look
Well,
like you
I'm
wanna say
not
something.
thrilled with the rafter tails being different on the south elevation than they would be on the north elevation. I understand what we're getting at here. But I don't think it makes sense to change the symmetry of the rafter tail angle
You mean to accommodate the gutter?
to accommodate the gutter only on the south elevation, not the north. Or even how item 3, we've only added to it. But they're basically asking for, we're asking for exposed rafter tails to be cut at angles to match the existing dwelling.
Would you like to make an amendment? An amendment to the motion?
I'm not sure what amendment I would make. If they cut them square, that would. I'm not sure that would be consistent with, what we're looking at. But I would say that if the lower rafter tails matched the acute angle of the shallower roof, then you'd be in a less.
Still would be hard to put a gutter on.
It's still-
On that, yeah.
And for the water mitigation, I worry that if number 3 stands as it is, you have created a situation where a gutter could not be put on there. The leeway in leaving the bar drafters exactly as is, but at the tails where the gutter is. In a perfect world, you design a gutter to look like the angle of the tail, but that's not going to happen. I just saw it as a good compromise on that one facade.
I mean, are we sure that they need gutters now because of, we've raised
Raised
it
the
up
height.
10 inches, so I was gonna suggest that we just remove, condition 3 entirely. I would make a motion that we remove, can I make an amendment that we remove
Would
condition
you
3
consider that a
entirely?
friendly amendment?
I would.
Okay, so then number 3 is crossed out as well.
Yeah.
Oh, did that gets,
Yeah, I think, removing, number 3, basically runoff is gonna come off the roof onto their driveway, which is porous pavers or permeable paving. There's a difference. And then run down the driveway if they raise the elevation, and they're gonna have to deal with it at the driveway grid, alleyway line or before that. So it just goes back to some of the stormwater management at that point.
yeah,
And whether or
I think
not,
we've dealt with it.
you want a car wash if it's a heavy rain as you exit the garage. Which isn't a bad idea. But it also makes snow removal when we have heavy snows. I have a slope that comes down to my garage, and I learned to extend my roof rake full length when I rake the snow off the roof.
Mm.
Otherwise, you are in a small avalanche. When we've had those 3-foot snows, it gets quite challenging.
Okay,
So does anyone want to second my motion to remove
your amendment,
my
is
amendment?
there a second to the amendment? Well, Eric made the motion and he accepted it as a friendly amendment,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so it doesn't need a second.
Now we need to vote on the revised motion.
On the revised motion.
Yep.
Okay, and then the revised motion, leaving number 3 out, but everything else on the original motion is still
On the table.
apropos, it's still.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay,
Well,
now, more discussion.
not to belabor this too much, but if we eliminate number 3. We're essentially giving them permission to cut the rafter boards straight, right?
I would contend that they've presented to us
As presented, yeah.
as presented.
Okay. That makes sense. I just want to make sure it matches what we're approving matches what's on the drawing.
Any other discussion? Commissioners? If someone, I will call the question. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Clarifications,
What's that?
They're gonna ask a couple clarifying questions, just really quick.
Yes.
With the, we've next option 3, we're proposing the rate fails as designed. That means that no gutters unless we come back. Okay. If our drainage plan looks like we would definitely benefit from a gutter or something. We would need to come back for an amendment.
No, I would think that if you worked with staff,
Okay.
That would be a minor.
it would be a minor change to what was approved
Okay.
tonight. And go ahead and work with staff on that.
Great.
Or any other minor or alteration to what was approved. Go ahead and work with staff on that. And then if something, and staff's with the understanding that if something isn't minor, then we'll have to go ahead and make a plan B and do it again. Okay? Questions? I want to compliment you. It's a very, very, it's a great effort to make it look like the original, to fit it into the district. And I thank you for going through that effort. And I know this is not an easy process. But in the end, we're trying to make sure that the historic district stays the historic district.
Mhm.
And that it doesn't turn into Pepperville, anyway. Or
Thank you.
something like that.
Okay.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Good chair. That. Next item on the agenda. Let's see, next time we have 5, number 6. Communications from Heidi Kennedy, update on state historic preservation grant.
Thank you. I still have not got anything from the state from last month, so I don't have much to add to it as far as when it opens up. We did at the end talk about reports from the commissioners about ideas about spending money and trying to, the one item that came up when I was doing the minutes and remembered was just our ongoing idea to refine the preservation code. And so it's more streamlined for applicants and staff and you all. So hopefully maybe we could spend some money on the grant, get jump start on that and get some assistance and help and maybe do a work session or like we talked about maybe 1 or 2 commissioners working, on it on the side to kind of get it going. But that's all I had for this. That's
Okay.
all I had.
Great. Okay. Time for something that I like to call good of the order. We have reports from Landmarks commissioners. Anything that you would like to report? Tim?
No,
I'm still interested in bringing the cost and burden down for applicants. And I think if the grant money or if some other effort could be put toward that, I'd be interested in helping with that.
Okay, that'll be my turn when it comes to good of the order for me. Go ahead. Derek, anything? Comments? Good of the order?
I can usually babble for a good 10, 15, but I don't have anything.
Kathy, comments? Good of the order?
I think am I muted still?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. No, I don't have anything. I have been asking for any kind of information that needs to be presented from the OBNA and nothing this month. But they are interested in knowing that I can act as a liaison for them.
And Kathy, I know the OBNA has been active in influencing nearby developments related to maybe traffic calming through Sizemore due to the Sizemore is going to extend south of Market of Choice and continue into a somewhat collector type road design, presumably. And do you have any updates on OBNA's activity there?
At the moment, the committee that's working on Sizemore is working actively to put the onus on the developer to help mitigate the traffic cut-throughs. And they're hopeful that they're going to make some progress there. We're also working on cut-throughs or traffic mitigation or traffic calming on Broadway. And we're working on that mitigation in conjunction with bike greenways. I think those are 2 major projects right now for traffic calming. But I can report more next month after we gather more information.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Okay. I would like to go back to the minutes from last month. meeting, there was a couple of issues raised and some concerns and some good ideas that were brought up. One of the first ones was a discussion of term limits for the positions. I am in complete agreements with something like that. I would like to,
For adopted landmarks commissioner?
I assumed that it would be for chair, vice chair, and those positions. If that's what the discussion was talking about.
I don't remember.
I don't remember
I
that.
don't remember that.
Sorry.
Okay. There was a discussion of term limits for the positions.
I think maybe that might have come up. For example, the city council or the city manager's office. There is a set term limitation for how long you can serve. Maybe that was, maybe you,
Okay, if that was the issue, I
think
assumed.
it's,
that-
I think that's set.
Okay, well, yeah, that is.
That's set. And I don't know that there's a term limit to how long you can be a chair or vice chair, but you just need to appoint somebody
Mhm.
every.
Since it was in the section on the election of chair and vice chair, I assumed that the discussion was term limits to chair and vice chair.
I don't remember that.
Okay, all righty. And I wanted to clarify that. The idea of adopting language changes to the preservation code and a review of the things and the way we do things on the commission is, I think it's critical. I think when was the last time the preservation code was revised by the city?
Says that on the little highlighted yellow, it's like 2014 or something?
Or,
15.
15.
15, 14 and 15. So, I mean, that's 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And as Derek pointed out earlier, the philosophies of the commission have changed in
Yeah.
20 years, yeah, sure. And we're talking, some additional issues have come up. And in the past, I can recall some contentious things about windows and exceptions that we made. What was the one I was thinking of? A historic building, the owners started changing out windows. It was the Catholic Church, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, right. They were
Yeah,
in
they
code
did.
enforcement.
They did half of them, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, then somebody finally noticed.
Mhm.
So we compromised with it and said, anything that was hidden can stay, but the other ones had to be. So
All
we have
replaced.
We have made compromise within the historic district
I think we
Yeah.
gave them time to replace all of those over time.
over time. We
That's
did
what it
do
was. It was not quite a compromise.
Yeah.
Well,
The question is, have they started to replace them?
I think that they have.
I think,
I
good.
think so.
Okay. That makes me feel better anyway. And so, yeah, but, having gone through with a different organization, the bylaws, it's a very time consuming process. Go through and, okay, is this really the way we do things? And Heidi, as you said, we will need help from
Yeah.
some
It'd be good to,
we would probably need input from legal
Mhm.
as well as process changes in that. But I really think we need to get a committee together, a subcommittee of the commission to start that process and work with staff without overworking staff.
Mhm.
Okay? Yep. All right. And then, again, Heidi, if we can come up with some money to get some help in this process. I would like to have something going, by the end of spring, start of summer.
Okay.
Okay. I would also like to raise, the idea and the notion to the commission that we have a series of discussions about where we're going, what we're doing, how we look at the commission. And I know that we do come from different angles and different places. Okay, and I'd like to have that discussion as to so we know what page of music we're singing from. Mr. Raleigh's comment tonight was, something like, what was it? We didn't quite know what you would accept. You know, I mean, I don't know. I hate to see hard and fast numbers and matrices and rubrics and everything like that, because each project is unique in itself. But a
Mhm.
consistency of where we're going and a consistency about windows would really help anybody in the district who is trying to do a project.
Yeah,
And Andy, you've done a project in the district. Derek, you originated the district and did a project.
Yeah.
Anybody else do? Kathy, Kathy, you live in the district, don't you?
I am right across the street. I'm at 498 Northwest Broadway, and so I'm not in the district, but we are affected by what happens in the district.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. How close is she? How close are you to the other historic district? Not closer to. not-
Closer to Old Town than
Than
Drake Park.
Then Drake Park, right? Okay, all right. Yeah, and so Kathy, I would really value your input as well as the folks who have already done projects in the district as to what procedures do we keep?
Mhm.
Which ones should we change? The state is talking and the city talking about affordable housing. Now, with the numbers that Raleigh's threw out tonight, the definition of affordable would certainly have to be on a sliding scale. Yeah, but the idea and the notion of housing, is there some way the historic district can help with that? The minutes from last month also said equity and housing goals were also discussed. And I think that would certainly should be part of our general discussion. But that would mean more work sessions.
Mhm.
Okay? You know, if we ever wind up with a month where we don't have a project, we would need work sessions
Yeah.
to get some of
Okay.
it together. And
Do we have anything coming in for next month?
I don't know for sure, but now we have at least four people that are working on projects, so. That there isn't something that's already obvious is, makes it a good chance we don't, so maybe a work session would be a good thing for next month.
okay. And then, then would we like to get together to set an agenda for that work session?
Sure.
Okay, all right. And other commission members? Would you like to go ahead and send your input? We can't all meet to
No more than two.
no more than two commission members. If you want to send a input up
Ideas.
for an agenda for a work session to Heidi, she can act as our clearinghouse.
We could take up 3 benches down at Drake Park and just one of them move down each time.
Okay,
You know, that is we,
Letter of the law.
When I was on Grand City Council, we would have socials.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden you looked around the room and there's 4 council people in the room. One of us had to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. I'll just go out there. And again, the concern that I have is I don't want to overtax that. Okay.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons we haven't done something yet is because we haven't had time. So I think maybe if we had some financial help or, I mean, tried something, we'll have to talk about it internally and see.
Okay,
'Cause
great.
It's a necessary thing that needs to happen. It's important, but it is a time consuming, pretty big.
Oh,
Um,
it is.
yeah.
It's huge. It's huge. Just our bylaws.
That's why we haven't yet.
Just the bylaws for the Nordic Club took hours and hours. And
Question.
apologize to the commission because I met with Heidi and Beth, right? And we developed goals to submit to the city. And I did not submit those goals, that document to you before I sent it to the city.
Fake news.
That is an error on my part. And that'll never happen again. I promise you that.
It sounded like Kathy had a question.
Kathy, go ahead.
I do have a question. Since I'm a non-voting member, if I show up for one of the work sessions, does that mean that I am creating a quorum, or can I be seen as an accessory individual to the work session without creating that burden of the quorum?
If we have a work session and we schedule it on our regular monthly meeting, it's publicly noticed, so that's not a quorum issue.
But a private meeting.
But if we had
should
a
be-
private meeting in my office or at City Hall to try to come up with an agenda, we had more than 2 people then that's a problem.
Ask
Does that
Ian,
make
because
sense?
I think it falls to ex officio position. If she's not a voting member unless an absence.
Oh, so we,
I don't think she creates the quorum issue in a setting like that.
I see what your point. So if 2 of the voting members and
Kathy.
Kathy wanted to meet to help, okay, I get it.
That works.
That makes sense.
Did
Thank
we
you,
answer-
Kathy.
Did that answer your question, Kathy?
It did, yeah, thank you.
Now, if we have if we have a meeting to go ahead and set an agenda, right? Heidi let all the commissioners know that we're going to have it. And then if there's a commissioner who absolutely wants to go ahead and jump in on that meeting, just go ahead and let me know. Most of you folks are going to be here long after I'm gone, because I'm term limited out. Okay, and so if you want to jump in and take a more of a direct input on that, I'm fine with that.
If we're setting the agenda for the next meeting, we can have some pretty broad topics and just, some guidelines and some information if somebody's looking at the agenda and wants to know if they're interested in tuning in. I mean, I think that's good. I mean, we're not debating.
No,
We're just.
no, we're just
adding
no,
it to
no,
the, yeah.
We'll just be putting a framework
Right.
together. Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good to me. Anything else?
I have just one comment.
Fire away, Jim.
Just in response to Ms. Rowley's comments about he didn't know how far he could push.
Right.
I think it's, the code is fairly clear.
Mhm.
And I think what he was getting at is he wanted to exceed the code
Mhm.
and he didn't know what the tolerance level is of the commission.
Mhm.
That's not the code's fault
No.
or the commission's
No.
fault.
No. No.
And I think it kind of, it raises, well, the back of my mind, this issue of the difference between a prescriptive code, which is what we have, versus a performance-based code. I sat on the City of Tualatin's Architectural Review Board and participated in writing a performance-based code. That puts a lot more pressure on the commission. And a lot of things got appealed to council because it becomes very subjective at that point in terms of performance base. So I think having the numbers is a good thing.
Yes.
It's clearer to most applicants that, if there's a ceiling of 19 or 20 feet, then yeah. And if you're going 3 feet higher than that, you probably have tested the commission
Mhm.
and you ought to know that.
It comes down to, the standard always has been that you're finding historic precedent within the district. And that seemed, we strayed from that a great deal because people are bringing pictures of things built in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's not historic. I'm sorry. That doesn't back your argument.
And those
But-
kinds of thoughts are things we need.
Yeah.
Share amongst ourselves and to share with staff.
Yeah.
And to communicate to applicants.
Yeah. If you think
But we-
Florida Alley looks bad now, you should have seen it in the 90s. It was a little rougher back
Oh,
then.
really?
Oh, hell. Right behind my house, they were playing chicken with 2 cars and they were crashing into each other. Well, I hate to say that they were chemically induced to do so, but they're playing chicken in the alley. It was a pit, which is why we went for the district.
That's what I
So,
want for
yeah, that and the traffic mitigation for the mill.
the old mill. Oh, man.
Lava Road was gonna be a 2-lane road all the way through.
Could you imagine what that would have been like from Franklin down to the old mill district?
Yeah, it's a racetrack.
Right through your house,
Yeah.
right through your neighborhood?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
No, I know.
Okay, anything else?
Move to
Dan?
adjourn?
A second.
It has been moved and seconded that we are adjourned. We are adjourned.
I see.
We're out of here.
Make it official.
Yeah.